Hey there, and welcome to another roster breakdown of Shaky Withers' excellent Lost Factions mod, the best 3 DLC around. Today we are looking at the Truthsayers of Albion, a request by Wolfic. So thanks for the comment and suggestion. If you have any other suggestions for a mod, please put them down in the comments of any of my videos, and I'll make sure I'll check them out and put it on my list to do. So let's travel to the mysterious island of Albion and check out the VFX roster there, remembering this is all on ultra size settings. Starting with the Legendary Lords, and we have 2 to choose from, and there'll be more about that in the following campaign video. Here we shall look at Morgane, the Phantom Queen, a mysterious and very powerful mage. Common stats, while not awful, especially for a magic user, with good defensive abilities and magic damage, but low actual weapon strength, with only 105 AP, but those magic attacks help compensate for that. She's also pretty quick on the feet, and able to escape easily, and has a very high charge bonus as well for a non-true combat character. However, that weak armour means that any hits that do get through, she's in a lot of trouble, but she does have a 20% ward save, which helps compensate for that. Onto the magic side now, with a wide range of spells taken from different lores, which are Spirit Leech, Doom and Darkness, Enfeebling Foe, Pit of Shades, Flock of Doom, and Transformation of Kadon, which is of course the summoning a Manticore. Now some more unique abilities. First up, Omen of Doom, dropping leadership and defense wherever she is, with a nice 40 meter range, meaning you want her close to the main battle. Next we have Omen of War, boosting her eyes around her, with melee attack and leadership, 2 great abilities which go together nicely. Next we have Murder of Crows. If you get Morgane in combat, you can always pop this ability to help cause some damage, and drop the melee attack down as well. A hand ability to negate a bit of damage, and of course cause a bit more. Lastly we have Flock of Doom, similar to the magic one, but you get 4 free uses of it, which makes Morgane a real potent lord on the battlefield. Before we move on, she can be placed on the back of the mount, increasing her combat potency considerably, and making her a quick mobile force with 160 AP damage. Still has weak armour, but with that mobility and even greater charge, and of course all her magic abilities, she can be a truly scary prospect. And now the next choice, which is a Druid, with again high magical abilities. So the base stats are similar to Morgane, with decent defense, but is not as potent on the charge, but does possess a bit more punch, if without the magical attacks, and unfortunately got your AP at 125. As you can see, that armour is almost non-existent, and Durell has to rely on his roll paint, which you will see in other characters in the roster. This gives the character a nice 15% physical resistance, which I presume is an additional to the base 25% resistance he gets in any case. So he's a bit more damage resistance than the base stats show. Spell wise, we have access to a new Truth lore. So first is a ward save whenever casting, adding missile resistance to all allies on the map. Speaks for itself how useful this is. The first spell is Blessing of Valor, a considerable increase in damage, and especially melee attack with a huge 200 meter range and 22 seconds of Yenth. Meaning it's a great way to take advantage of a hard hitting unit. Next is a nice cheap magic missile spell, great for proccing that missile resistance buff at only 4 winds of magic, and will not eat into your precious reserves much. The Act of Protection adds a large resistance buff to a unit, which is also pretty nice, but you usually have to time it right to get the most out of it. But if you're facing a fire mage, it speaks for itself how useful it could be. Boon of Courage is an armour buff. However, a lot of your units have low armour to start off with, so it's not as much use as a spell as it can be, but it can definitely help negate some damage. Gift of Life is a very powerful healing spell at 13 cost. It's the most expensive of the spells, with a great range and nice Yenth. However, it needs careful use, as this uses a lot of magic to cast it. Getting shot at by annoying units, well, this will restrict the shooting range of a unit. More useful than you think. If you've got a really potent Ray Watchers unit taking pot shots at you, you can decrease their range and get them closer to your own units, and with a 30-second duration, it's pretty useful. Lastly, a unique Yord ability, Call of the Fens, and you can summon a unit of Fell Beasts. Costing a lot of magic, and you only do it twice, but they are powerful, as we will come back to later in the roster. Abilities and items, he has a few options, such as the Imperfect Shield of the Old Ones, which which is similar to the Isman one, which boosts a protection spell and adding some leadership as well. And any damage resistance is most welcome on the OE armoured Albion faction. 2 items now, Amulets of the Old Ones, are rare and true unique items, boosting Winds of Magic and healing Drow at the same time. Also, his staff increases the recharge abilities map wide when he is casting. A useful ability, as some of these abilities are really powerful, and to increase the time between them uses is always handy. Drow can also be mounted on a horse or chariot, which we shall now cover on the next your choice. Onto the more standard Yords now, and first up is the War Eater. Decent melee combat Yord with a silver shield and good armour, if not elite. Good in attack and defence, and hits reasonably hard with 150 AP, so it can certainly do some decent work in a fight, and that silver shield helps negate the missiles along with his 15% missile resistance. Abilities, we have War Cry, a very powerful buff with leadership, melee attack and defence getting significant buffs. So keeping the War Eater in the thick of the action to get the most out of him. Next we have 2 unit abilities, which we will see on other units through the roster. First we have Raw Fury 1, a bit more damage on the charge and adding some nice base damage and melee attack, useful, and a constant buff as long as the health is good. War Fury 2 is actually a real debuff for any unit that gets affected by it. When you're using your leadership, it can tank even more, making a jiggling act of applying buffs to keep your warriors in the fight or face them routing. An item as well, the Frame Axe of Cormac, adding a decent damage increase and melee attack and making his attacks framing a very handy weapon indeed. As mentioned before, Drow can be mounted on a horse, and in this character we get a similar damage increase on Drow when using his chariot. With a lot more armour and that devastating charge ability, 250 AP and anti-infantry of 26. Naturally you get a real great mobility and a really hard hitting character. But as always with chariots, keep them moving to get the best out of them. Onto the harsh choice to lead your armies now, the Truthsayer. This wizard, as you can see, is terrible in combat, but brings their magical abilities to your army. For Truthsayer I have 4 choices. First one is of course the Truthsayer's Yore, which I've already gone over with the magic abilities. Also you can choose Beasts, Yife and Yite. Quick note here, usually you can have a hero of these Yores as well, but you don't with Albion. You do get a magic user, but not with these options, so remember that when you're building an army. Back to a Truthsayer now. Other than the unique Yore, and by the way they cannot summon a fell beast like Drow can. The only other ability to talk about is the Power Stone, which alongside Arcane Conduit can definitely get you some decent magical charging. For Truthsayers can also be mounted on a horse. Onto the heroes now, and only 2 available to you. The Chieftain is a defensive minded choice, with about 55 defense being some of the highest on the roster. However, again the armour is pretty low, but we do have really good AP at 220 and very high 35 anti-ice bonus as well. Gives the Chieftain some really good damage against the monsters of the Warhammer world. Other than that is your basic cheap hero, but can definitely provide some nice protection for your magic user. You can also be mounted on a horse or a chariot. The other option is this Druid, giving you a hero caster. While it's better than a Truthsayer Yord, they're still pretty terrible in combat with only 115 AP damage. As with all casters, keep them away from the fight. Spells available to a Druid are interesting though. Fast Protection, the Ite of Battle, Vocis Wide Form, Pan of Impenetrable Pelt, Winds of Fate and Earthblood. Sort of buffing abilities there, with Winds of Fate being the only one damaging. And also whenever the Druid casts, they get Earthbloom, giving off a quick heal to the surrounding area. As you can see, from the roster, a Druid can provide a vital role in your army, as units really benefit from these boosts, definitely to help them survive. Onto the Rain roster now, and first up is the Albion Warband at 375, a nice cheap unit of the old tier infantry, with decent melee attack, and as we go through the roster, remember the Albion have those unique abilities, War Fury 1 and 2. Unless I state, when I go over the units, if they don't have one of these abilities. Keep in mind the buff and the small debuff when using combat. So back to the Albion Warband, 7 AP on the damage, and they do have a shield but no armour. which is definitely a theme for Albion on the whole. For the same 365 cost, you can equip them with spears, add some good melee defense to the unit, but still that low armour, and even with spears they're here to AP at only 5. However, they do get that anti-arch of 15, which of course is a nice bonus. A cheap and cheerful spear unit. Next is the more damaging Great Weapons variety at 500 points. Add some decent melee attack, and remember to add the War Fury +6 onto that, as well as the damage boosts from that particular ability. Hard hitting, but will of course die quite quickly if you're not careful. Add an armor buff to stop them dying to even Skaven Slaves. However, at 500 points, they do have 25 AP damage, giving you cheap access to some decent AP, and the charge is very good as well for the price. Want even more damage? Then take this unit, and it will cost you 600. Very high leadership, but no armor or defense. They do however have Frenzy, as well as Raw Fury, so that melee attack goes up to 40 from the start of the fight, as well as the damage buffs. Means this unit hits really hard on the soft targets, as the 6 AP is not going to get him through heavily armoured opponents. However, you get these on the right target and they will tear through them. And they also have that 15% physical resistance as well, which helps a bit at least. An interesting option now with a small unit of Druids. Magical attacks are a lot of damage at 47 with 9 AP, which is of course negated by those magical attacks. At 700 they provide other unique abilities as well. Access to the Shield of Thorns, which gives them 2 uses of that, which could definitely help increase the damage of another unit. Also Awakening the Wood, slowing down enemies, which of course is very useful if you want to slow down a counter charge, as your damage can cut through the current unit which you're in combat with before they have a chance to get there. A very interesting option in your army, and note these magical abilities don't use your valuable Winds of Magic. Onto the more elite of the melee infantry now, and first is 900 points worth of Hearthguard. A unit actually with a bit of armour and a shield, with decent melee defence and leadership, means they can provide a solid wall of shield. Speaking of that, they have a special ability that allows them to have an expert charge defense and adds missile defense as well as their shield. A unique ability which is really cool, as they do not have the War Fury 2 debuff when they're using combat, which helps that unit anchor a front line. However, they will have weak AP at only 8, means they won't be killing much, so complement this with other hard hitting units, which Albion have many of. Next at 950 are these ladies, a very powerful unit, again with no armour. They provide great melee attack, and with the War Fury buff pushing out over 40. They're quick as well, and have a devastating charge buff, which is rare for infantry. With 8 AP and a bonus to infantry of 10, they can do some real damage and a great quick flank unit. Just make sure they don't get caught on cavalry on the way around. Back with the Hearthguard now, and this time with halberds at 1050 price tag, with really high melee defense and 80 armour, to each protect them a bit. This unit also has not got the War Fury 2 problem, so the leadership should stay high. Their attacks are 24 AP and 22 anti-yarge, so really potent against any yarge threats, and they should be exclusively used against them, as their base melee attack is really low and about poor against standard infantry. However, they won't be going anywhere fast with that decent defence. Next we have High-Handers, which if memory serves, there can be only 1, not 100, but hey, whatever. A powerful greatsword unit, good stats all around, if not great on defence. They are great for getting into the side of infantry, or even a full frontal assault, with their 26 AP damage and 10 anti-infantry, means they will cut down a lot of units down on that charge. With no War Fury 2 debuff, they get their own freedom ability instead, something you want to pop as often as you can, as the cooldown is quite short, keeping the amount of models really high to keep the damage flowing. Lastly, we have this elite unit of very powerful infantry, coming at a hefty 1400. This unit is well worth it though, with amazing defense and regeneration, so as well as their undead, so remember they can't be healed by usual abilities. With high damage of 38 AP, there are very few units can go one-on-one with this unit in the Warhammer world, especially when it comes to infantry. They are slow, but really putting the work on the field. They also don't have War Fury 2 to drop that leadership, which would be really bad on this particular unit. Before we leave the infantry, this campaign exclusive unit is worth talking about, mainly because they are pretty much Graveguard, with a lot of damage with magical attacks, 12 AP and 8 infantry as well, without steal a shield. Can definitely provide a lot of trouble for the enemy to try to get rid of this particular unit, and it only costs 850. Moving on to the cavalry now, and let's start off a nice cheap one at 500 points. A very quick, hard hitting unit on the charge, which definitely has a lot of uses, as it's shielded, can provide a bit of missile resistance as well. However, they should never stay still, and with that Vanguard option, this with good micro can easily make their cost back, chasing down the low-tier infantry or pushing a quick counter charge, but make sure you keep them away from armour. With a limited AP of 6, they'll be wasting their charge and their ability to cause damage. For 25 points more, you get a better charging unit. With a bit less defense, they can do a similar job, and they can also charge against a large unit with that extra 5 anti-charge bonus. This each provides you an option for dealing with this type of unit, and they're not much more expensive at that. But they are quite weak, and they will easily get destroyed by most decent tier anti-charge threats. However, if your micro is on point, you can always get in there and get out quick, because they have the speed to get away from most things. On to more mid-tier units now. This unit has some decent armour and is still pretty quick, but comes at 800 cost. Still providing a shield, and they do however use the War Fury 2 ability, so leadership should stay high. Good all-round cavalry force that can be left to fight with your tier cavalry or troops, as they can easily hold their own. But Chariot is up next at 850 cost, and it's a decent chariot option at that. And this one is very good at being, as it's very quick compared to others in the game. While the defense is awful, that devastating charge and that bonus of AP of 33 and 18 bonus in infantry means it does some serious work for that price point. As long as you keep it moving, and as an extra bonus it has 100 armor as well. Means if you do leave it in a battle, it won't disappear completely. But definitely keep it away from any elite anti-charge threats. Back up with the Albion Nobles this time, equipped with a spear for a 900 price point. It's a decent anti-charge threat, but sadly no AP, which would really help. At only 9 and anti-charge of 10, this unit, like the cheap warriors we saw before, is good at facing off large monsters, however they must have your armour. And they can also take on some low tier cavalry as well, as these are usually lightly armoured. The arse of the melee cavalry are the centaurs, at 1000 cost. They can definitely provide some badly needed AP from your cavalry units. While 26 is not exactly a lot for an AP, except for the chariots, this is the only option you have. Like all the Albion options, they are fast cavalry, which is really beneficial. So keep them away from trouble, because their low combat stats can easily get them caught out and easily take too much damage, which is comfortable. So make sure your micro's on point, so they don't get caught out. With 15 physical resistance from that road paint and base 25%, they're tougher than the yoke, but always keep an eye on them. Lastly, the only ranged option you have for cavalry, and it comes in at 525 points. And I would take these over the ones on foot, i.e. the Youngbloods, as these have decent attacks with their javelins, they have an anti-charge threat on their attacks, and they can fire while moving. Everything you need, but jack some of the numbers. Definitely my preferred choice if given an option. On to the R section now, and let's go with monsters and beasts. And first up is the 350 dirt cheap Bloodhounds. As always, a favourite unit of mine due to their speed. However, in this army where your cavalry is so fast across the board, it seems like a waste to use this particular unit. When you can throw 100 more, you can start working your way up to cavalry. However, there are 80 models in this unit, so they can overwhelm some opponents. Giants are a theme of Albion, so let's start off with these small versions, but they are still huge. At 800 points, you get 12 huge damage dealing half giants. It may not say good AP, but it's still at 40, which is not to be taken lightly on these anti-charge threats, with that 25 anti-charge bonus. It means they can really cut through a unit. As normal, not great on defense, but you can protect this unit with some of your cheap warriors, and they can do some terrifying damage for a low price point. And low armor large models, we need to be very careful around them. Next for the same cost is the Feral Griffin, another fast unit which is great for picking off artillery or even a large monster, as the damage is considerable at 225 AP and a bonus to the charge of 20. They do have weak armour, so you have to be careful of them, but they do provide a lot of damage possibilities. And you can even roll a Yord or a hero on a mount. And at 800 points, that's pretty much a bargain. On to more mythical creatures now, the Fen Beasts at 1450 cost. And more AP again, as most of your monster options do. A toughish regeneration unit with okay armour and defence is decent, but still need to be careful. As a construct, your heroes cannot help them, so always be aware of that. And it's especially true of this roster as it can be a bit of a mix if you're not careful. With the Fen Beast 60 AP, they can do some decent damage against pretty much anything they choose to attack. However, they do have your leadership, and they have a magic dependent ability, which means they use 15 if your Winds of Magics is yo. Something they need to keep an eye on this roster, as a few units has this problem as well. This obvious unit in this roster is of course a normal giant. These are slightly different than other giants in the other rosters in the Warhammer world. They are a bit quicker and have better melee defense when compared to like a greenskins giant. They also have more physical resistance at 15% from their wall paint and their natural physical resistance of 25, give them a decent arsing ability. Other than that, they hit really hard with 450 AP and not yet can stand up to a giant attack. If you want a more unique option, for 1750 you can get this unit, which allows you to throw huge rocks everywhere. Obviously sacrificing their melee combat prowess, their range attack is potent as you can see here. It's a great way for clearing out infantry before you close in the gap with your hard hitting troops. Also, if all else fails, it's still a giant, so throwing it into combat is not exactly the worst idea either. The last of the monsters is the Fen Hulk, a very tough solid unit which takes you out a shift off the battlefield, and is very expensive at 2150 points. It's a big investment, but it will take a lot of enemies' firepower to slow it down. With a huge health pool, a good defense for when it gets into combat, as well as decent armour, it's definitely an issue to shift. And it's got regeneration to boost, and some other abilities to talk about. First is magic dependent, which I've already looked at earlier with the Fen Beasts. Next it has arcane configuration, actually helping your recharge rate. Not bad on such an important monster. And it also slows the enemy down around it, so you can use this as a focal point of your army, and anything in 60 meter range will be slowed down by it. Then you can use some cavalry to quickly strike in and get out, because you've got a nice window of everything being slowed. Also, this monster of course is hard hitting with 320 AP, so it can easily happily smash its way through the enemy. The last unit to talk about is an artillery option, and the only one you get. However, of course you still got your Stonefall giant as well. It's pretty much a classic trebuchet, and very similar to the Bretonnian version, which you gotta think Albion borrowed it from. It's not got the range and it's a bit less damage for that particular one, but it's still as effective as ever. And that's that roster, another unique one from Shaky Rivers and the team. So thanks for watching, and I'll be looking at the campaign in the next weekend's video.